Testing, testing, 1, 2, testing. Are we on? Y'all know me. Always have these technical difficulties. Here we go. Here we go. Hey, we're here. Could I get a could I get a round of applause? All right, all right. Yeah, so a lot of people have been talking about this interview that is taking place within the last 24 to 48 hours with the National Association of Black Journalists interviewing Donald Trump. Now, apparently, Kamala Harris was supposed to be there. She pulled out in the last minute. There was some talk of her streaming in live if she wasn't able to come in person. You know, there was talk of her joining via Zoom, but she decided to pull out of that as well. So the whole narrative that Donald Trump has been ducking the debates, I don't know. Her ducking out, Kamala Harris ducking out of the NABJ interview or conference, that doesn't look good. That doesn't strengthen Kamala's narrative that Trump is the one dodging Kamala Harris. Because Donald Trump, credit where credit is due, had the heart to show up in person and take his lickings. You know, he knew he wasn't coming to a a friendly crowd here. He's coming to the black journalists. He's about to be interviewed by black women. And we know that black women are the staunchest of supporters when it comes to the Democrats. The black women are the most loyal Democratic supporters. So Donald Trump surely knew he was coming into a hostile crowd when he decided to show up in person for this NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists, conversation and convention. But he went, and from the jump, from the very get-go, from the very start, it was nothing but hostile conversations. Now, full disclosure, I've only seen certain clips of this interview. So tonight we're going to break down the whole video. I'm going to watch it with y'all. We're going to have a bit of a reaction video here. So we're going to get into it. If it's your first time watching, be sure to hit the thumbs up button to support the channel. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to smash the subscribe button for content just like this, talking about a wide range of issues. Without further ado, let's get into this interview because I'm curious to see how this went. Let's check this out.
This discussion continues a decades-long tradition during election years of inviting journalists to discuss the policies and their impact with the candidates who are running for president and the impact of those policies, especially in black communities. Former Presidents George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton have attended the NABJ conventions either as presidents or as presidential candidates in past years. NABJ is currently in conversation with Vice President Kamala Harris's team to schedule a Q&A either in person or virtually in September. As journalists, we use opportunities like these both to inform our reporting, but also to help voters understand the choices that they face in a consequential and historic election year. NABJ has partnered with PolitiFact to fact-check this conversation in real time. You can access that feed on social media using the hashtag NABJFactCheck. Again, the hashtag is NABJFactCheck. We have a lot to get to, and we do not want to waste any time, so let's bring out the former President of the United States, the Republican nominee
They're cheering for the fact-checking. I'm not going to lie. They do need fact checkers on Donald Trump because my man stays lying. He's normalized it so much at this point.
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question.
Before I let Trump answer that question, I'm going to let him finish. But the problem here is when the question is, why should we have this platform? Why should we grant you this platform? A lot of people have been talking about this as it's the first question of this interview. A lot of people have been saying, yeah, why did they even platform Donald Trump? Why did they invite him? I think we've got to get over this whole censorship reflex. People are like, why did we platform him? What's the alternative? You're trying to censor the front-running candidate of the Republican Party? This is a former president and the front-running candidate for the Republican Party. What journalist in their right mind is going to turn down an interview with Donald Trump right now in an election year? In a major election year such as this, what journalist in their right mind would turn down this interview? So for her to ask as the first question, why should we platform you? Why should we interview you? Is almost disingenuous. We got to get away from this reflex of, oh, if we don't like someone, we've just got to censor them. We shouldn't invite them. We shouldn't have a conversation with them. No, we need to have conversations with people from the other side. And that's even assuming that we should be looking at Trump as from the other side. The way this question is framed is already very antagonistic. My question will be, as a journalist, aren't you supposed to be sort of neutral? I don't know. Let's hear the response Trump has.
You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit.
Ooh, shots fired. Shots fired. Hold on. He said going at the news network. Hold on.
This country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke, and I saved them. And I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working, or something
Mr.
was
President,
wrong.
I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe that black voters should trust you with another
I
interview.
have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln.
Oh.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act.
For you to start
Is that shade? Ooh.
answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
Let me just ask a follow-up, sir, and then we'll move on to other questions here. Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice...
Now, to talk about coming in hot, this is the first question. This is the first question and first response. So this interview has to go... Oh, man. I'm curious as to where this is going, because... Again, Donald Trump didn't even answer the question. He just spent his whole response saying, hey, y'all were late. Kamala didn't show up. What kind of interview was this? Shade on the whole platform.
President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words
then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir,
of
I'm
that.
asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me, if you
I
would.
just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So, I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly, very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She is always
But you know
identified
what?
as a Black woman. She went to a historically Black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way. And then
Ooh, shots fired. Shots fired. Shots fired. Hold on. Hold on. It sounds like Donald Trump has been listening to the FBA movement, has been listening to Tariq Nasheed. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's a good thing either. You know, Donald Trump is getting a little comfortable here, saying Kamala, she's counting herself as Black before she was Asian. When she's been proud as being an Asian, being an Indian. But it's only around election time when all of a sudden she becomes Black, when she wants to surround herself with Cardi B and rappers talking about Quavo. It's only around election time when she turns really Black. But then when she's in office, she doesn't do anything for Black people. She doesn't do anything for Black people. And she's not very Black when she's in office. It's only around election time when, oh yeah, I cook collard greens and I listen to hip hop. I listen to Tupac in the 80s. Like, okay. The point that he's making, I think he's heard that from listening to the grassroots, from listening to brothers like Tariq Nasheed, listening to the FBA movement. That's something that they say. And I got to break this down. We're going to get more into this interview. This is an interesting interview, but I got to break this down real quick. And I got to address this because it's kind of important. I've seen online a lot of folks who support the FBA, Foundational Black American Movement, the delineation movement, the movement for reparations. A lot of these folks, especially, I want to say it's something with the younger folks who don't have a lot of experience. They like to question people's Blackness. Oh, Kamala Harris, I've actually seen this online. People say, oh, Kamala Harris isn't Black. You know, she's not Black. Listen, Kamala Harris might not be foundational Black American. She might not be, in the words of Kendrick Lamar, she's not like us. That's fair. I'm not saying that Kamala Harris is a foundational Black American, but let's not get it twisted. She is Black. She is melanated. Her father comes from Jamaica. Her father is Jamaican. She's Black. She has melanin in her skin. This term Blackness is really referring to the melanin in her skin. So yeah, she has the right to count herself as Black. She's not foundational Black American though. That is a specific lineage. And when people say, are you Black or are you not? That term, foundational Black American and Blackness, have become interchangeable. And this is one of the reasons why it's important that we do this delineation movement now. It's a reason that we need to start normalizing and utilizing the word foundational Black American, descendants of slaves, American descendants of slaves, freedmen. We have to start using verbiage like this. We have to delineate because the term Black has become it's become too weighted. It's become too load bearing. People don't know when you talk, oh, I'm Black. They mean, are you foundational Black American or are you just Black skin? Because there's Black skinned people all over the globe. And that's not something that's just indigenous or exclusive to the foundational Black American. But that term Black has become interchangeable with foundational Black American. So it's important that we start using words like foundational Black American instead of just Black, so that people don't get confused when they say, oh, Kamala Harris, she's not Black. It's like, she's clearly Black. She's not Black American. She's not foundational Black American. This is why it's important that we start to normalize and utilize these these phrases which are very specific. That term black is not very specific and it can actually become confusing. So when Donald Trump's here as a white man comes out saying, oh, I didn't know she was black, that's not even something that he should be really speaking on, whether or not she's black or not. Yes, she is black, but that's none of his business. That's none of his business. She's not foundational black American, but that's in-house. That's a delineation movement that's happening between the black Americans and the black folks in America. But that's in-house. That's between us. That's not something for Donald Trump to be questioning Kamala Harris's blackness. See, but that's why we need those terms so that people can become specific. All right, let's get back into this interview.
Then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that
I think somebody should look into that too when you ask continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans
really don't
have
know.
said?
I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are some, and there are plenty. I know this lady right over there, Harris, is a fantastic person who just interviewed me at length. And we had a great interview, I think, and I heard you got very good ratings on that.
Well, you told me it was the longest one of your life, so we had a good discussion. Look, I want to talk about why you're here today. I mean, it is not lost on us how divided we are as a country. And as you were coming today, we really got to see that we are divided along the lines of race, along the lines of gender. And there is this question.
It's the woman in red speaking now.
Where we are. Why come here? What is your message today?
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has a job.
All right.
And
Mr. President,
they're taking the employment away.
Again, they're interrupting Donald Trump, and you can tell that these journalists are biased. But what the point that he was trying to make was actually legitimate, and I think that I'm glad I'm watching this full interview. I'm glad I'm breaking down this full interview, because if you go online and see people's reactions, they're going to clip out certain sections and try to manipulate this interview. But so far, I'm not necessarily against what Donald Trump is saying. His answer what is he saying? What is his message to black community? His message was, hey, we need safer borders because they're trying to dilute your population. They're trying to dilute your vote. They're trying to dilute your communities. We need stronger and safer border protections and protections to keep American citizens safe. That's number one. Number two, we need more black jobs. Oh my goodness, what's a black job? A black job is any job that a black person is capable and willing to do. Let me say that again. What is a black job? A black job is any job that a black person is capable and willing to do. Me, I've got a black job and I'm proud of my black job. So they think there's no such thing as a black job. They think they're signaling, or that's a gotcha moment, but it's really not. We need more black jobs. This man is in his late 70s. He doesn't know all of the vernacular when it comes to this ebonics, when it comes to the black community. He might not know how to articulate himself around these black topics, but the spirit of what he's saying is not wrong. It's not wrong. Let's get some more into the interview.
Away from black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people. I have a feeling it's much more than that. And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The first group of people, the black population, is affected most by that. And Kamala is allowing it to happen. She's the border czar. She's the worst border czar in the history of the world. There's never been a border czar like this. She's never even essentially been. She said she was there once, but not the right part of the border. So she was a border czar. She's done a horrible job. these people are coming into our country and they're taking black jobs and Hispanic jobs, and frankly, they're taking union jobs. Unions are being very badly affected by all of the millions of people that are pouring into our country. And one thing, as we discussed, many of these people are coming in from mental institutions, from prisons, from jails. They're gang members in other countries. Other countries are setting loose their prisoners. They're opening up their prisons and their mental institutions, and they're taking their bad people, drug dealers, gang members, and they're bringing them into the United States. And by the way, their crime rate is going down, and our crime rate is going to be a disaster.
Mr. President, I want to get into how you address some of the issues with black communities. And I said,
By the way, I don't think that's necessarily wrong. You know, a lot of people are like get offended by the notion when Donald Trump says, you know, a lot of these countries are emptying their prison populations and sending a lot of criminals across the border. I don't think that's so far-fetched. If you look at the movie Scarface, for example, go back and watch that movie Scarface. Say hello to my little friend. Everybody knows the famous movie Scarface. Go back and look at the movie Scarface and see how the movie starts. See, Scarface, Tony Montana, he's coming from Cuba, and he just got out of prison in Cuba when they ship him to the shores of Florida. All right, go back and watch that movie Scarface. That's not so far-fetched, actually. There are a lot of countries who have been well documented as sending their prison populations to America. That is not so far-fetched. Let's get some more of this interview.
that plural because we live in communities of color that are different. We're not all the same. We don't vote the same. We don't think the same.
Sure.
It's not monolithic. So as you come here today, I want to talk about something that bursts, and this is the weight of the inflation on this country right now. The nonprofit Money Management International recently released data from its mid-year analysis that we have found a 52% rise in people who are seeking counseling for being in credit debt. They're paying for food that is sky high on their credit cards, and now they can't pay that off. The credit counseling nonprofit MMI, as I said, is saying now that they've seen surges that they haven't seen since we were in a pandemic of people in financial trouble. Much of that falls on the shoulders of single moms, single black moms, when you look statistically.
Yeah.
How do you turn it around? What's your plan for the black community when it comes to money?
So, first of all, it's very hard to hear you for whatever reason because of the fact that they have bad equipment, because I guess, you know, this woman was unable to get the right equipment. But it's very hard for me to hear you, but I can hear every other word. It's very difficult. So I don't know if they can fix it.
Hey, yo. Hey, yo. That's wild.
But I'll do the best I can with it. The inflation is absolutely destroying our middle class, our working class, virtually every class. Inflation is a disaster in our country. Inflation is a country buster. It breaks every country. And we had, in my opinion, the worst inflation we've had. They say it's 58 years, but I think it's much more than that. It's been devastating. And if you just take a look at a lot of things they don't include, like interest rates. Interest rates went from 2.4% to 10%, and you can't get the money. People can't buy houses. They no longer have the American dream. Young people, young black people, they don't have the American dream anymore. They can't buy a house. They can't borrow the money because of the cost of the money. They can't buy it because of the cost of housing, because of the cost to build it, because of inflation. Inflation is a disaster, and it's destroying our country, and it's destroying the black community probably as much or more.
So what do you do?
Than any.
What's your plan?
You know what we have to do? We have to bring down the cost of energy, and that's going to bring down the cost of inflation. This was all started with a bad energy policy by Joe Biden. By the way, just if I might, I was running against a man named Biden. You probably saw that. And he was losing very badly in the polls, and then he had a rather bad debate. I would say it was a bad debate. I would say it was one of the worst.
Hold on, I'm going to let Trump finish that thought. But first, I got to give a quick shout out and salute to the kid, Mitch Sledge. What's going on, brother? Welcome back. He says, is Trump in the middle of cognitive decline? No, I don't think so. He's getting elderly. I mean, he's getting older. I don't think he's necessarily in his prime, but I haven't seen any indications of dementia or anything anywhere near to the extent that Joe Biden was facing. He's a bit older. I'm not going to say he's a young man or he's as sharp as he always was. I don't know him that well, but I don't think that he's facing any significant. He might have some level of cognitive decline, which is normal at that age, but I don't think he's facing any significant amounts there. Yeah, so good question, bro. Let's watch some more of this interview here.
Worst debates in history, and his poll numbers crashed. And instead of saying, let's keep going and maybe something happens the other way, they said, oh, we're going to replace him. Let's just replace him. That's like you're in a fight, a prize fighter's in a fight. He's not doing well. You say, let's bring in another fighter. So our whole campaign was steered toward him, and now we have to steer toward him. But ultimately, it's the same because they have bad policy. They have policies of open borders, unbelievable open borders, horrible energy policies. They want to get rid of, as you say, gasoline in cars. They want to get rid of oil. They want to get rid of efficient.
That's interesting, the point that he just made. Like, they changed out the fighter in the middle of the fight. So their whole campaign was targeted towards defeating Joe Biden. I think he made that point because, and I mentioned this in a live I made earlier this week, maybe yesterday, that when breaking down the Republican men versus Democratic women, Donald Trump selected J.D. Vance before Joe Biden dropped out of the race. So J.D. Vance is a guy that's pandering especially to young white men, young unmarried single men. J.D. Vance panders towards single men. And Donald Trump made the decision to include J.D. Vance before Joe Biden dropped out of the race. So when Donald Trump here answers the question saying, our whole campaign was targeted towards beating Joe Biden, and then he drops out, that's like switching the prize fighter at the last minute. He has a point there. He does have a point there. Let's continue.
Efficient heating, environmentally, what they're doing is killing our country. They're absolutely destroying our country. But the inflation is the thing that's hurting the black worker, the black population, and every other population within our country. Inflation is the worst it's been, I think, in over 100 years. And they'll fact check it. They'll say it's only 58. Whatever it may be, they don't add all the numbers. They don't add the really bad numbers, and you can check that too. But inflation, Harris, is absolutely destroying this country and the people in our country. Yes,
Mr. President, can I ask you another question
yes,
that is also impacting Black Americans?
And that's very clear now. Good.
I'm sorry?
It's very clear. I hear you.
Okay. So Sonia Massey, someone from Illinois, an unarmed black woman, was shot the other day in her home by a deputy sheriff. The deputy has since been charged with murder. You've said police would get immunity from prosecution if you win. Why should someone like that officer have immunity, in your opinion?
Immunity?
Immunity.
I don't know the exact case, but I saw something, and it didn't look good to me. It didn't look good to me. Are you talking with the water, right?
Yeah, well, police unions are not backing this person either.
Okay.
But again, why would...
They're going to be charging the officer. I guess they're charging the officer.
So why should he receive immunity?
Well, he might not. I mean, it depends. It depends on what happens. I'm talking about people that are much different cases than that. We need people to protect ourselves. And by the way, in Chicago, as an example, a few weeks ago, July 4th weekend, they had 117 shootings and 17 deaths. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. We need to have our police officers have the respect and dignity back. In this particular case, I saw something that didn't look good to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
So can you get a little more specific back to the immunity question? Who would make those
Well, right now,
distinctions?
for the most part.
That was a weak answer. That was a weak answer that he just gave concerning police immunity. That's a question that he has to be prepped for because that is a major flaw. He's on record saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to give police officers immunity." That is a major flaw in his campaign, is that he is on record saying we need to give all police officers essentially immunity. So when folks see issues like what we saw in the Sonia Mason, Sean Grayson case, Sonia Massey versus Sean Grayson, the Sean Gracie killing of Sonia Massey in her own home after she called the police, and Donald Trump is on record saying that he wants to give police immunity for acts like that. That's a major concern. That's a major concern. Donald Trump has to be prepared to give a better answer than that. He needs to have a better answer than that. That was not a good answer from Donald Trump.
People are protected by their unions, by their police unions, or by their police departments. But I'm saying if I felt, or if a group of people would feel that somebody was being unfairly prosecuted because the person did a good job maybe with crime, or made a mistake, an innocent mistake. There's a big difference between being a bad person and making an innocent mistake. But if somebody made an innocent mistake, I would want to help that person.
What would those exceptions be? What would determine
You
an
go
innocent
after
mistake?
somebody and it's a very close call and it's very dangerous. And you know, they have, the policeman's life and woman is a very difficult thing, because sometimes you have less than a second to make a life and death decision. And sometimes very bad decisions are made. They're not made from an evil standpoint, but they're made from the standpoint of they made a mistake.
So I want to follow up really quickly. I find it interesting because you do talk about reining in prosecutors, especially when it comes to prosecutors that are prosecuting you. Why doesn't that skepticism apply to law enforcement?
Well, I've been prosecuted because I'm a political opponent of two people that have weaponized our justice system. I've been prosecuted. I just won the big case in Florida. Everyone said that was the biggest case. That was the most difficult case. And I just won it. Now, Biden has a similar case, except much worse. I was protected under the Presidential Records Act. Biden wasn't, because he wasn't president at the time. And he had 50 years worth of documents. And they ruled that he was incompetent, and therefore he shouldn't stand trial. And I said, isn't that something? He's incompetent and he can't stand trial, and yet he can be president. Isn't that nice?
Mr. President,
but they released him on the basis that he was incompetent. They said he had no memory and he was a nice old guy, but he had no memory.
Whoa, hold on. Shots fired. Hold on. Shots fired. Yo, that someone needs to clip that, because that's a point that he just made. Did you hear what he just said there? He said, hold on, Joe Biden committed the same crime that I was convicted of as far as the documents go. Donald Trump wasn't convicted for that, but he was indicted for those documents, for keeping those documents. And he said that they weren't classified because he declassified them. He was covered by the Presidential Act, right? But Joe Biden was also caught with classified documents. He was not the president. He was the vice president. But the courts decided not to prosecute him because he was incompetent. He was incompetent to stand trial. He's incompetent to stand trial, but he can be the president of the United States? Make that make sense. Shots fired. Shots fired. Yo, shots fired. That is a big point that he just made right there. Yo, someone's got to clip that and make that a short. I don't think people have seen that. Guys, if you've made it this far in the video, we're about halfway through with this interview. If you've made it this far in the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. So I got this new mic, so I haven't figured out how to show y'all the thumbs up. Hit the thumbs up button, man. Hit the thumbs up button. It's free. It's free. Hit the thumbs up button. And if it's your first time watching, smash the subscribe button for more content just like this. Talking about a wide range of issues, from news, politics, current events, hip hop, sports. I just made another live talking about the elder abuse between Jake Paul Jake Paul, and Mike Tyson. Y'all got to check that out. So we got a lot of interesting content here. Shout out, salute one more time to the kid, Mitch Sledge. Says, yo, you're really balanced. I like few people like you. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Just try to be fair. I just call strikes and balls. You know, I try to be fair with it. I try to be fair. Appreciate your support, man. Let's get back into this interview. Y'all check this out.
No memory, and therefore we're not going to prosecute him. I won the case, and it got very little publicity. I didn't notice ABC doing any publicity on it, George.
We cover you extensively, sir. I'd love to move over on to different topics.
I didn't notice you do any publicity on it at all. I won the case, the biggest case. This is an attack on a political opponent. I have another one where I have a hostile judge.
We have you for a limited time, sir. I'd love to move on to different topics.
No, excuse you. You're the one that held me up for 35 minutes, just so you understand.
If we can move on now to the state of the race, sir, I want to get back to the campaign. Senator J.D. Vance is your running mate. He's had a lot of controversy lately, and I want to read you a few things that he has said.
That is pretty rude, though, the way that they're treating Donald Trump. This is a former president. They're cutting him off in the middle of the answer. It's kind of rude. I don't know. Maybe I try to be fair. They are being kind of rude. I think it's just this woman in blue is not feeling Donald Trump for some reason. The other two seem pretty fair. The woman in the black and the woman in the pink at the end, they seem pretty fair. But this woman in blue, she is not a Trump fan at all.
In the past, he said the Democrats running the country are a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices they've made. And so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. He's not talking here about how great it is to be a parent. He's attacking what he says are the choices people are making to not have children. Did you know that he had these views about people who do not have children before you picked him to be your running mate? And do you agree with him?
No, I know this. He is very family oriented, and he thinks family is a great thing. That doesn't mean he thinks that if you don't have a family, it's not. I know people with families. I know people with great families. I know people with very troubled families. And I also know people with no families. They didn't meet the right person. Things happen. You go through life, you don't meet the right person.
But he's not just talking about families here. He also says that people that don't have children should get less votes than those that do.
I'm just speaking for myself.
Is that your campaign
I think
position?
I'm speaking for him, too. He strongly believes in family. But I know people with great families. I know people with not great families that don't have a family. And the people without the family are far better. They're superior in many cases, okay? He's not saying they're not. What he's saying is that he thinks the family experience is a very important thing. It's a very good thing.
Did you look, in trying to cover up for J.D. Vance, my man Trump has said that people without families are far better than people with families. Listen to this splaining, man. Listen to this splaining. You cannot make this stuff up. Donald Trump is a trip.
Grow up and you grow older and you don't meet somebody that would be wonderful to meet and would have been good, that's a bad thing. He's not saying that. My interpretation, you'll have to ask him actually, but my interpretation is he's strongly family oriented, but that doesn't mean if you don't have a family, there's something wrong with it.
Just one last point and then we'll move on. Just one of the bedrock principles of American life is one person, one vote. Senator J.D. Vance has suggested that someone who has children should have more votes than a person who does not have children. I just want to be clear here. Is that the position of your campaign?
Well, no, but it's not something I have ever heard before. I can tell you this. Right now you have illegal aliens coming into our country, many from prisons and many from mental institutions, and they want to give them votes. I don't think they should have votes. They came into our country illegally, and they're taking the vote away from all of the people in this room that have been here a long time, that have worked hard, that in many cases, and you'll see this happening, if I'm not elected, you're going to see it happening. If I am, you're not going to have any problem. But you're going to see it happening a long time. You're going to see the people in this room and people outside of this room.
That's a good point that he's making. That was a good pivot. He tried to change the subject there to one of his strengths, and that's immigration. And make no mistake about it, I'm here in D.C. I'm telling you about local politics. They have just passed legislation this year to allow illegal immigrants, people without citizenship, Simple residents. They said you could have been here for 30 days. People who haven't been here for 6 months. People who just got here this year will be allowed to vote in local elections in Washington, D.C. So that's a big flaw on the Democrats. And I swear the Democrats, one thing I don't like about the Democrats is they'll just straight up gaslight you. They'll just gaslight you. They'll lie to your face and try to make you feel as if you're just imagining what's clear before the world. They'll show you images of Joe Biden and his cognitive decline, and they'll say, "Oh, he's sharp as a tack. He's sharper now than he was 10 years ago." They'll just lie to you. You'll point out, hey, a lot of these illegal immigrants, they're getting the right to vote in a lot of these local elections. In a lot of these different states, here in D.C., they just passed legislation to allow illegal immigrants to vote. Hey, these illegal immigrants are getting the right to vote. No, they're not. You have to be a citizen to vote. They'll just lie to you. The Democrats are shameless. They have no problem just lying to you, gaslighting you, just, just denying objective reality. Like, they have no shame.
Are going to be losing their jobs to people that have come into this country illegally.
Mr. President, can we stay with just kind of the state of the race right now? Because I felt like that vice president question, candidate question was right in there with that. So let's talk about J.D. Vance for a little bit. He's had some stumbles out of the gate. I don't know if you're hearing what we hear as reporters, but it's been a tough couple of weeks for him. Why did you choose J.D. Vance?
Why
did you choose him? And I'm having a hard time hearing, too. I know everybody out there can, but it's hard to hear.
I'll tell you why. I chose him because he's a very strong believer in work and the working man and woman, and especially the working man and woman who have been treated very unfairly, because you have many of them in this room. But you have many of those people, they were treated very unfairly. They worked very hard and they were treated unfairly. He wrote the book that became a bestseller. The movie became a smash hit. He's a very smart guy without the benefit of having a family that has contacts, like a father that was well connected. He got into Yale Law School. He graduated in 2 years from Ohio State, summa cum laude. I mean, you take a look at, his career has been an amazing career. He started off at a level with a difficult family situation, very difficult with the mother and the father and everything else. He ends up going to Yale Law School and was one of the top students, became the head of the law journal. I mean, that's an amazing thing. He's a 4-year, he was in the military with great distinction for 4 years, got out, went into business, became successful in business, very successful in business, actually, did public offerings and other things. And I have to believe in that. I mean, he's somebody that was born in a rough situation. Most of the people know that situation because it was very well documented in his book. And I have a lot of respect for somebody that can get into Yale and become one of the best students in Yale.
That's an interesting answer as to why he supported J.D. Vance, or why he selected J.D. Vance as his VP pick. He gave reasons in his background, but he didn't point to any policies or any platforms that J.D. Vance has been pushing. It was an interesting answer that he gave there. Personally, I think that he chose J.D. Vance because he thought he was running against Joe Biden. He thought it was going to be a cakewalk. So he was like, hey, I'll pick someone that I like. I'll pick someone that he's been very loyal to Donald Trump, especially after January 6th. Prior to January 6th, J.D. Vance was on record saying some rough things about Donald Trump. But after Donald Trump got elected and had been governing for a while, J.D. Vance switched his perspective or his opinions on Donald Trump. I think that Donald Trump saw like a son, a grandson in J.D. Vance type of thing. I think it was like more of a personal level, because even his answer here as to why he chose J.D. Vance, it was more of a personal thing. Like, oh, he grew up in a situation as a kid, but he was able to overcome all that, become a very successful lawyer, Yale graduate. He likes his story, but that has nothing to do with the policies that J.D. Vance is espousing. So that was an interesting answer that he gave there. Let's watch some more.
Yale that meets a young woman at Yale who was also outstanding, and they get married, they have a beautiful family, but he had he's made himself an amazing life. He then goes to Ohio, lives in Ohio, and he had my endorsement. That helped. But he wins the Senate. He becomes a United States Senator. So he's a United States Senator. And so, Harris, like I respect you for your success, I respect people for their success.
The reason I asked the question is because the last time you and I sat and talked was the day that you were shot. We'd been together for much of that day. You left to go to Butler, Pennsylvania, and we didn't know what was next.
Yeah.
And 2 days after that...
I cannot understand. Your microphone
I know,
is so
it is
muffled.
really hard for me to understand
it's just,
you too.
I can understand you perfectly.
Because she's closer.
I can understand you.
I'm happy to hear that, sir.
But I can't
Really happy to hear
understand,
that.
Harris,
I have a few more questions.
because of the distance, and the mics are really in lousy shape, but I cannot understand
Are you asking a question?
what you're saying.
So what I wanted to say was the last time we spoke, you...
Hey, did you catch what he just did with that bottle? I'm going to go back a few seconds. Did you catch what he did with that bottle? Hold on. Watch what he does with this bottle. Watch this. Here's Donald Trump. To Donald Trump's right, he has his own bottle. I want to point this out. This is interesting. Donald Trump is sitting here. His bottle is on the right. The woman's bottle is sitting here in between Trump and Donald. And look at what he does after pointing out, oh yeah, I can hear the woman in blue I can't hear the other ladies, but yeah, I hear you laughing, getting a laugh there. Look at watch this bottle though. Noticing that his bottle is over here. Watch this.
But I cannot understand
Are you asking a question?
what you're saying.
So what I wanted to say was the last time we spoke, you said some words that were...
He doesn't drink. He doesn't drink the water. That's not even his water. His water's over here. He doesn't drink the water. He knows that's not his water. He reaches over there all the way to take this woman's water. Talk about a power play. You got to understand the mentality of presidents and powerful men in general. There's a bit of a passive aggressive competitive edge to a lot of folks in high powered positions. They're looking for any way to win, any way to compete and win and get a small edge in any way. So you got to understand the mentality of folks who are billionaires, multi-business owners, presidents. They're competing against other presidents, other billionaires, other real estate moguls. So they're always in a mental state of competition, trying to get the one up on you, trying to get the advantage of you, trying to make power plays. This is the mentality of someone like Donald Trump. So to watch this interaction here, and Donald Trump taking her water, and he didn't drink it. Don't let that go over your head. He did not drink it. That was a power play what he just did. I want to continue with the interview, but I want to play that one more time, and I'm just going to let it play out from here. But notice this power play that he's making with this water bottle that he doesn't drink.
Are you asking a question?
What you're saying.
So what I wanted to say was the last time we spoke, you said some words that were prophetic because I asked you who you wanted to choose for vice president.
Yeah.
And you said normally it really wouldn't matter what they would bring, you choose somebody that you think has a future, that sort of thing. But you said these words 3.5 hours before an attempted assassination on your life. You told me that bad things happen, Harris, and that's why this decision is important this time. Bad things happen. You said it twice. When you look at J.D. Vance, is he ready on day one?
Does he what?
Ready on day one, if he has to be.
I've always had great respect for him, and for the other candidates too. But I will say this, and I think this is well documented. Historically, the vice president, in terms of the election, does not have any impact. I mean, virtually no impact. You have 2 or 3 days where there's a lot of commotion as to who, like you're having it on the Democrat side, who it's going to be. And then that dies down, and it's all about the presidential pick. Virtually never has it mattered. Maybe Lyndon Johnson mattered for different reasons of what we're talking about, not for vote reasons, but for political reasons, other political reasons. But historically, the choice of a vice president makes no difference. You're voting for the president, and you can have a vice president who's outstanding in every way, and I think JD is. I think that all of them would have been, but you're not voting that way. You're voting for the president. You're voting for me. If you like me, I'm going to win. If you don't like me, I'm not going to win.
I'm going to get my JD Vance question in.
JD Vance.
That was an interesting answer. Talk about a dodge. Talk about a dodge, man. The question was, hey, if the worst should occur, do you think JD Vance is ready should the worst occur to you? Should he need to take office day one? Do you think he's ready? The man didn't say yes, he would be ready if need be. He didn't say, well, hopefully we'll never find out. The man said, well, the vice president is really not that important of a position. Historically, it hasn't really made that much of a difference. What kind of deflection was that? That does not sound like a full-throated endorsement of his vice president. I don't know about that one. I don't know.
Vance?
I'm going to get my JD Vance question in. To your point and to Rachel's point, he, has a lot of opinions about childless women like myself or divorced people like yourself. Do you think, well, I mean, my point is here.
But at least it was said in a friendly manner.
My point is, do you think the
Uh-oh, shots fired. Hold on. Shots fired. Shots fired. Hold on. She said he doesn't have good opinions of lonely women like myself or divorced people like yourself. Oh, okay. Just got a little shady. I think the temperature dropped a little bit there.
Getting a little bit too judgy about people's lives when you think about abortion or when you think about what JD Vance is saying?
I don't think, look, I think that the Democrat Party is really the one that has the problem. I think they're radical on abortion because they're allowing abortion in the 9th month. They're allowing the
But
death.
I think it's
They're
about
allowing
freedom,
the death
right?
of a baby after the baby is born, based on
Sir,
the
that
governor
is
of
illegal in
Virginia.
every state in the
That's
country.
Based on the governor of Virginia,
Executing a
they're
baby in
allowing the
every
death
state
of
in
the
the country
baby
is illegal.
after it's born.
It's a
They're allowing
crime.
abortions in the 8th and 9th month.
Well,
of
Democrats
pregnancy.
have denied
I think they're right.
that.
And I
That's
think
the
the
thing.
Republican Party is actually much less. I think I've made them much less radical, perhaps. But the Republican Party, what we're doing is bringing it back to the states where everybody wanted it. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservative, everybody wanted abortion brought back. They didn't want Roe v. Wade in the federal government. They wanted it. Everybody
But the
wanted
majority
it
of
back.
Americans oppose
Excuse
Roe
me.
v. Wade being overturned.
They
Multiple
don't know
polls have
about
showed that,
this.
sir.
Right now, they're voting. It brought it back to the states. Now, I happen to believe in the 3 exceptions. Ronald Reagan believed with rape, incest, life of the mother. I do. I think most people do. I think most Republicans do also. But if you take a look, right now they're doing, it's an amazing thing. Out of the federal government, it's in.
I actually agree with him on that one. I'm against I don't even know if I can say that word. I'm against child deletions in every situation outside of situations of sexual assault, situations of life or health to the mother. I think those or situations of incest. And even with the incest one, that one's a little bit iffy, because if you're messing with your cousin and your cousin ends up getting married, you knew that was your cousin. Y'all gotta stand by the fruits of that. Y'all gotta stand with the fruits of that tree. If you over there messing with your cousin knowingly, I don't even know if that one should be an exception. So as far as child deletions go, I think I'm fine with it being illegal outside of the situations where there's a risk of health to the mother and or situations of SA. So I'm fine with that. But as a man, I've been told it's none of my business. I shouldn't be trying to police or legislate women's bodies. So as far as I'm concerned, that's on the women to vote and push their agenda because I'm staying out of that one. That's just not my fight.
States and people are voting. And I will say, Ohio is, let's call it a more liberal version, has been approved. Kansas, the same thing, a little bit surprising to a lot of people. But the people are now voting, and it's taking this issue that's been going on for 52 years and has torn our country apart, and it's giving it to the people to vote on. And they're voting. And many states have already voted. Others are in the process of voting. And it's bringing it back to the people and a vote of the people. And it's not at all radical. And again, you have to follow your heart. I happen to believe in the three exceptions. Most people believe in the three exceptions. Most Republicans believe in the exceptions. But they don't want to see an abortion in the 9th month or the 8th month. Almost everybody agrees to that. And they certainly don't want to see, in the case of the governor of Virginia, the former governor, I might add, who said, we set the baby aside and then we decide what to do, meaning, what do? We execute the baby. That's a radical, horrible position. And some people want that. I don't want it. Most people don't.
Thank you. Can I just pivot really quickly to another question about, you brought up health, Harris. You're an active man.
I don't want it.
Golfing all the time. But if you win, you'll still be president at 82.
No.
Which is older than Biden is right now.
But not mentally. Look, mentally.
Listen, here's the question.
He's shot. But most people,
would you
most people, I know many people in their 80s and their 90s that are
He's not wrong.
Some of our greatest leaders. You look at throughout the world history, the greatest leaders, some of the greatest leaders in the world were in their 80s.
But here's the question. Would you consider stepping down if you felt that your health was declining? Or would you?
Oh, absolutely.
And who would make,
I think I'd know.
How would you make that decision?
I think I'd know. Look, if I came onto a stage like this and I got treated so rudely as this woman treated me.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm fine with it because she was very rude, sir. Very rude. That was a nasty, that wasn't a question. She didn't ask me a question. She gave a statement. That wasn't a question.
I repeated your statement, sir, actually.
You said you would. You would
Oh,
make that
absolutely.
decision
If I
to step
thought
down.
that I was failing in some way, I want people to be sharp. I'll go a step further. I want anybody running for president to take an aptitude test, to take a cognitive test. I think it's a great idea. And I took 2 of them and I aced them.
Well,
I took 2 of them. But let me ask you.
Yeah.
I would like to have people running for president, and I don't mean because they're 75 or.
For the record, that's a good answer. He didn't hesitate on that one. He's like, if you had some cognitive decline, would you step down? Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, I would step down. And he's like, I think I would know because hint, Democrats, y'all knew that Joe Biden was suffering cognitive decline. The fact that they try to pretend, oh yeah, Joe Biden was still sharp, they got him lying, and the whole world can see that man has dementia. I think he knows. I don't think it's something where, oh, he thinks he's sharp and he's just to the outside world declining. No, I think that he's made some errors where it's hard to miss. You can't watch some of those clips that Joe Biden has, some of those gaffes, they call them, some of those blunders that Joe Biden has made. You can't watch some of those on video and not see signs of cognitive decline. It's just impossible. So that was at least he gave a good answer there.
Or 85. I think anybody running, I'd like to do it. People say it's not constitutional. I would like to have something passed where you can do it. I think we should know. I mean, I've watched what's happened in the last couple of years under this gentleman, and our country is a mess. We have inflation. We have the millions of people falling in. We have Afghanistan, which was the worst, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. What he has done to our country, and her too, what they've done to our country. She has been a horrible vice president. She's considered the worst vice president in the history of our country.
Don't mean to interrupt you, but would you consider taking the cognitive test?
Mr. President,
I would love to
and
do
make
it.
it public?
Well, I've already taken 2 of them, but I'll do it again.
Mr. President, how do you intend to?
I suggested, Harris, that let's take one. I said, Joe and I will go and take a cognitive test. Now, I'd do it with her, too. I would do it with her also. You know what? She failed her law exam. She didn't pass her law exam, so maybe she wouldn't pass the cognitive test.
Mr. President,
Are you saying she wouldn't pass? Just to be clear,
I'm just giving you the facts.
to be clear, you don't think
I'm
Harris
just
how do you
giving the
intend,
facts. She
and
didn't
look,
pass her bar exam, and she didn't think she would pass it, and she didn't think she was going to ever pass it. And I don't know what happened. Maybe she passed it.
She did pass it.
There's a
She
man
did-
over
she
here.
did
I
in
think
fact pass
he
it.
must work for
Mr.
her.
President, I would love to ask you about January 6th. You've called yourself the candidate of law and order. When Time Magazine asked you if you would consider pardoning all the rioters, you said yes.
Donald Trump is hilarious, though.
You called them patriots. 140 police officers were assaulted that day. Their injuries included broken bones. At least one officer lost an eye. One had 2 cracked ribs, 2 smashed spinal discs. Another had a stroke. Were the people who assaulted those 140 officers, including those I just mentioned, patriots who deserve pardons?
Well, let me bring it back to modern day. Like about 5 days ago, we had an attack on the Capitol, a horrible attack on the Capitol. You saw the people that were protesting and spraying these incredible monuments, bells, lions, all these magnificent limestone and granite with red paint, red spray paint that will never actually come off, especially in the limestone. It will never, I'm a builder, I know about this stuff. It'll never, you'll see it in 100 years from now. They viciously attacked our government. They fought with police. They fought with them much more openly than I saw on January 6th. What's going to happen to those people? What's going to happen to the people in Portland that destroyed
But sir, my
that
question
city?
is on those.
What's going to happen to
my
the
question
people
is
that
on
tried
those
to burn
rioters
down?
who assaulted
Excuse me.
officers.
You have to
Would
ask,
you pardon
what's
those
going to
people?
happen? Oh, absolutely, I would.
You
If
would
they're
pardon
innocent,
those-
If they're innocent, I would pardon them.
They've been convicted.
And by the way, the Supreme Court just well, they were convicted by a very tough system. How come the people that tried to burn down?
That was a bad answer. Hold on. Hold on. He said, if they're innocent, I would pardon them. What? What? Hold on. What? The woman's like, the journalist is like, they've been convicted. Duh, they are not innocent. They are not innocent. Police officers were injured. Some people died. A woman was killed as a result of the police defending the Capitol, defending the location, being swarmed by zombies. Footage of that situation where the woman was killed looked like a zombie, looked like Call of Duty. It looked like Call of Duty zombies are coming through the windows. I don't know if you saw the video of the officer that shot that woman. What's her name? Katie? I've got a brain freeze now. I'll remember her name in the middle of the night. Watch. But if you go back and look at the footage of the woman who was killed on January 6th when the police officer shot and defended himself in the Capitol, it looked like zombies were coming through the doors. It looked like zombies were literally smashing down windows from Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Zombies were crawling through the windows. The man defended himself and a woman lost her life. Not just one woman, another officer ended up taking his own life, deleted himself days later. Another officer had a stroke because of all the stress and tension of the situation. When they went into work that day, they weren't planning on getting involved in a situation like that. They thought it was going to be a routine day protecting the Capitol. Protecting the Capitol. They didn't know that the Capitol was going to be stormed. And Donald Trump trying to minimize that situation. That's not really a good look, especially as a president. You're supposed to be keeping the institutions, the government institutions safe. What would have happened if Nancy Pelosi would have been located by that mob, or Mike Pence for that matter? If Nancy Pelosi was in the halls when that mob was storming through, that could have ended very badly. That could have been ended very badly. And Donald Trump trying to minimize that is not really a good look. Not only is it not a good look with, independents like myself, it's not a good look on the global stage. How are you going to go to these other countries like Russia and tell Russia Ukraine, tell all these other countries, Gaza, how important democracy is? You're going to wag your finger and look for the moral authority, try to be the moral authority, telling people how important democracy is. Meanwhile, you're minimizing an angry mob trying to rush the U.S. Capitol in search of politicians to kill in order to overturn the so-called democratic election. Both of those are mutually exclusive. You can't minimize January 6th and wag your finger as the moral higher authority to the rest of the world talking about democracy. No. So that answer, no. Donald Trump's he's got to find a way to square that circle, because January 6th, that is a weight around his neck.
Minneapolis. How come the people that took over a large percentage of Seattle, how come nothing happened to them? How come the people
sir, we're talking about people that were seen beating officers with flagpoles, dragging them down the stairs. They're on video. Have you seen that video, sir?
Oh, really? Well,
you would pardon those rioters?
They shot a young lady in the face who was protesting. They shot her in the face. Nobody died that day. You do know that. But people died in Seattle. Nobody died, but people died in Minneapolis. People died in Minneapolis. And nothing happens, and nobody ever talks, and nothing happens to those people. But you went after the J6 people with a vengeance. And I'll tell you what about the cops that were, and I'm all for the police, as you know, but what about the police that are ushering everybody into the Capitol? Go in, go in, go in. What about that? Look, nothing is perfect in life. But you have people from Minneapolis, you have people just from 5 days ago in Washington, D.C. They were having fistfights and fighting with the police. They were spraying and destroying. They were desecrating our monuments in Washington, D.C. 5 days ago, and nothing happened to them. And you can't have two systems of justice. That's why they
talk about a deflection.
Political opponent, because they felt they couldn't win without doing that. And we're going to win our cases, and we're going to be vindicated.
This is whataboutism. What about Portland, and what about everything except for the topic that we're talking about? You're asked about January 6th. You weren't asked about Portland. Trying to deflect and point your finger at the Black Lives Matters protests in 2020 and things of that nature. Listen, that a lot of those folks were prosecuted as well. If they were caught on camera looting or stealing, they should be prosecuted as well. But you're not talking about pardoning anyone who was involved in the Black Lives Matter protest. You're not talking about pardoning anyone who is participating in the Israeli Gaza protest, Palestine protest. You're talking about pardoning, giving clemency, immunity to the people who were already convicted and found guilty on January 6th. So this whole whataboutism that Donald Trump's trying to use in this answer here is not very effective. I'm not buying it.
But I have to spend a lot of time on that and money. That's what they want. After the election, they won't care. Although in my case, I think they probably will, because the hatred is pretty deep. But I'll tell you, they went after me as a political opponent. That's never happened in our country before, and it sets a terrible, terrible precedent.
What do you do on day one if you win? What's your first thing?
What do? I close the border. And I do two things, because I can do a lot of things simultaneously. I close the border. We don't want people coming in. We want people to come in, Harris, but they have to be vetted. They have to be checked. They have to come in legally. I want people to come into our country, but they have to be vetted. They have to be checked. So when you say, what do? That, and I drill, baby, drill. I bring energy way down. I bring interest rates down. I bring inflation way down, so people can buy bacon again, so people can buy a ham sandwich again, so that people can go to a restaurant and afford it. Because right now, people can't buy food. Your grocery bills are up 40, 50, 60%, right? She's agreeing to me. Oh, she's agreeing. Thank you. I like you very much.
Mr. President, I think we are.
But it's true. Your grocery bills are up. And then they're mandating that you buy an all-electric car. You know, Elon Musk endorsed me, and he's a friend of mine. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy. But I'm against everybody having an electric car, okay? I'm very much against that. You have to be able to, if you want a hybrid or if you want a gasoline-propelled car. But, you know, we have more liquid gold, gasoline, oil, under our feet than any other country. More than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, more than any other country. I want to use it. I want to use what we have. I want to bring down prices, bring down costs, and I also have to stop the invasion. And remember, they're taking your jobs. These people coming in are taking your jobs.
Project 2025.
I think we have to leave it there by the Trump team.
All right.
So leave it. That is the last word. Thank you so much, Mr. Trump, for coming today and joining us.
Well, thank you very much.
They've been telling us.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, very much. Great honor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
That was a strange conclusion. That was a very strange conclusion. They didn't know how much time they had. Could they ask one more question? That was a weird conclusion to the interview. But overall, I think it was pretty interesting. They've been showing a select few clips online. Of some of the clips, like the first question, went viral. His question as far as JD Vance has gone viral, but I don't think that I haven't really seen up until now. I'm reviewing it with you guys, but in what I've seen online, I haven't seen anyone clip up his answer as far as the January 6th situation. That was interesting. There were a few things that he said in this interview that were fairly interesting. That clip where he took shots at Joe Biden saying, how is he's not competent to stand trial for keeping those classified documents when he was vice president. He's not competent to stand trial, but he's competent to be president. That doesn't make sense. I'm surprised that hasn't been clipped up. Since no one else has, don't mind if I do. Y'all might have to check out Fried Time Media. I might have some shorts in the work for y'all. You know, I've been pretty busy, so I haven't made a lot of shorts recently, but I might have to come back with some shorts, give y'all something to look at. But hey, listen, guys, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope y'all enjoyed the breakdown. If you made it this far in the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. We drop in lighter content just like this, talking about news, politics, current events, hip hop, sports. I made another video earlier today talking about the elder abuse between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. That whole fight, I'm breaking that fight down. Jake Paul should be ashamed of himself trying to take advantage of that old man. So y'all be sure to check out that video. Subscribe to the channel and hit the thumbs up button because it's free, man. It's free, guys. Hit the thumbs up button. It's free. It's free. It's free. Hit the thumbs up button. All right? I appreciate everyone rocking with me. I'm going to see you on the next one. Peace.